The world's most advanced stealth helicopter is falling out of the sky. Through my night vision, I can see the Pakistani ground approaching way too fast. 30 seconds ago, we were invisible to Pakistani radar. An 11-ton ghost carrying the most lethal operators on the planet. Now we're a falling target, 50 meters from the world's most wanted man. May 2nd, 2011, Abbottabad, Pakistan. The night that would change everything was falling apart before it even began. But to understand how we got to that moment and why those 40 minutes redefined modern warfare, you need to go back to the beginning. SEAL Team 6 isn't just a military unit. It's a laboratory where decades of special warfare evolution converge into men trained to make the impossible look routine. On that May night in 2011, all of that evolution would be tested in the most absolute way possible. My role was simple in theory. Be the first American to set foot in the compound where the architect of 9/11 had been hiding for a decade. Simple in theory. In practice, it meant carrying the weight of 2,977 victims, the expectations of a nation, and the responsibility to close the most important circle of our generation. 4,000 days had passed since the Twin Towers fell. 4,000 days hunting a ghost who communicated through grainy videos and encrypted messages. For a decade, Osama bin Laden was more myth than man, a national obsession that consumed billions of dollars and cost thousands of American lives. Until one afternoon in April 2011, everything changed. CIA analysts identified a compound in Abbottabad that defied all architectural logic for the region. 3 stories, 18-foot walls, minimal windows, and one detail that lit up every intelligence sensor. A privacy wall on the 3rd floor, exactly the right height to hide someone 6'4". The CIA's confidence level was 95%, numbers that, in our business, are practically a guarantee. But that remaining 5% represented the difference between historic justice and the greatest geopolitical disaster in modern American history. What happened in those 40 minutes on hostile soil wasn't just the death of a terrorist. It was the culmination of a silent revolution in the art of war, where precision intelligence, cutting-edge technology, and force projection capability merged in the most spectacular way ever seen in military history. 15 years later, I carry the unique responsibility of telling this story. Not the Hollywood version, not the political narrative, but the testimony of someone who was there, who climbed those stairs, who looked into the eyes of the man who changed the world, and who participated in the exact moment America settled its accounts with 9/11. This is the true story of Operation Neptune Spear. Our insertion looked perfect in the manuals. The pilot would hover our modified Black Hawk over the central courtyard while we fast-roped in complete silence. Stealth technology, precision flying, surgical insertion. What could go wrong? We'd trained relentlessly for weeks in a simulated environment identical to the compound. Every detail had been replicated with military precision, exact dimensions, internal layout, even the height of the walls. The only detail we didn't account for was the difference between the chain-link fence used in the mock-up and solid concrete walls 18 feet high. The pilot did everything right, but bin Laden's fortress architecture turned our helicopter into a falling brick. The irony wasn't lost on me. The walls built to hide America's greatest enemy had just brought down America's most sophisticated aircraft. The cause was confirmed in post-mission analysis. The solid concrete walls prevented proper rotor wash dissipation, creating turbulence that ricocheted directly back into the tail rotor blades. And in 5 seconds, our perfect insertion became a controlled crash. Exactly 3 minutes after our unplanned landing, lights came on in the control tower at Kamra Air Base. A Pakistani radar operator was watching a thermal signature that shouldn't exist. 47 operations taught me to recognize when the situation is spinning out of control. Your team leader checks his watch, then checks it again, then a 3rd time. In that moment, watching the growing concern on our squad leader's face, I knew our perfect mission had just become a race against time. While we were blowing the first breaches in the compound wall, 2 F-16 from the Pakistani Air Force took off from Kamra. Their mission: intercept and identify unauthorized aerial activity over Abbottabad. The situation had cruel irony. Those F-16s had been supplied by the United States itself. They were part of billions in military aid we'd sent Pakistan as payment for their cooperation in the war on terror. And our backup helicopter, our only way home, was flying directly into an intercept course with fighter jets piloted by allies who had no idea they were about to interfere with the most important military operation since D-Day. Every second in that compound brought us closer to a confrontation that could detonate a crisis between two nuclear allies. We still weren't sure if bin Laden was actually there. The unmistakable sound of a Kalashnikov on full auto cut through the night air. 3 quick bursts, then complete silence. Through my night vision, I saw stroboscopic muzzle flashes coming from the guest house door. Someone was firing blind in our direction, but without a defined target. Abu Ahmed al-Kuwaiti had just made the fatal mistake of every non-professional fighter, revealing his position first. 47 operations taught me that amateurs shoot to intimidate, professionals shoot to eliminate. Ahmed was intimidating. We were eliminating. 2 of my teammates responded with precision fire. HK-416SN with suppressors, ACOG sights, and ammunition designed for maximum stopping power. In the ghostly green world of night vision, I watched Ahmed convulse and drop in the doorway. Threat neutralized in under 3 seconds. But this was just the first domino. In urban warfare, every shot has cascading consequences. Moving to contact. 2 fire teams approached the guest house from opposing angles. Basic principle that saved more American lives than any other tactic. Never approach a dead threat from a single route. Always assume there are more. My role as point man was simple. First through the door, identify threats, neutralize, or communicate. Sounds simple. In reality, it means processing a dozen visual inputs in milliseconds. Muzzle flashes, movement patterns, hands, eyes, posture, weapons, all while maintaining trigger discipline and rules of engagement. Bushra, Ahmed's wife, appeared in the doorway 3 seconds after the gunfire stopped. Her hands moved toward her dead husband's AK-47. In modern warfare, gender doesn't determine threat level. Movement toward weapons does. One of my teammates made the decision in a fraction of a second. Bushra fell beside her husband. 2 threats neutralized, guest house secure. Total engagement time, less than 15 seconds. What Hollywood never shows is the 5 minutes after a firefight. The compound had awakened completely. Female voices screaming in Arabic and Urdu, children crying. Sounds of confusion, terror, and grief mixed with the smell of cordite and blood. During my years operating in urban environments, I learned this is the most brutal reality of modern warfare. Combatants hide among families. Every threat elimination risks civilian casualties. Every hesitation risks American lives. While 2 fire teams secured the guest house and began flex-cuffing civilians, the rest of the force moved toward the main building. A vertical fortress with 3 stories of concrete and reinforcement designed to defend against exactly what we were doing. Ground floor, family quarters, and storage. 2nd floor, more family areas. 3rd floor, 2 rooms, including the one with privacy walls tall enough to hide a 6'4" man. The compound's architecture worked against all traditional clearing tactics. Narrow stairwells created fatal funnels. Multiple rooms per floor meant multiple angles of attack. And every step up reduced our escape routes while increasing our exposure time. We'd rehearsed this exact building layout for 3 weeks. Every angle, every corner, every potential ambush point was burned into our muscle memory. The only variable was human behavior, how people react when their sanctuary becomes a battlefield. The metal door at the base of the stairs to the 2nd floor was partially open. In the green world of night vision, I could see the stairway ascending into darkness. 15 steps to the 2nd floor, 30 steps to bin Laden's room, each step carrying us deeper into history, or deeper into a potential ambush. It was climbing those stairs that we encountered the one variable we weren't completely prepared for. Intelligence is only as good as its sources, and our sources had been watching this compound for 8 months. We knew the adult male residents, Osama bin Laden, Abu Ahmed al-Kuwaiti and Abrar al-Kuwaiti. What we didn't account for was the younger generation. Halfway up to the second floor, I heard movement above us. Not the shuffling of frightened women or children. This was deliberate, cautious movement. Someone was positioning themselves at the top of the stairs, and based on the footfall pattern, it was a young male, probably in his 20s. In counterterrorism, the most dangerous enemy isn't the grizzled veteran or trained operative. It's the true believer with nothing to lose and everything to prove. Someone who grew up hearing stories about martyrdom and American demons. That's when our point man made a decision that would be studied in psychological warfare courses for years. In the darkness at the top of the stairs, our point man called out softly, "Khalid." "Hey, Khalid." Just like that, conversational, almost friendly, using the name of Osama bin Laden's youngest son like they were old friends. What happened next violated every principle of tactical surprise we'd ever been taught. Instead of neutralizing the threat immediately, we were engaging in psychological warfare with the world's most wanted terrorist's son, in the middle of a compound that should have been cleared silently. Khalid bin Laden, a 23-year-old who'd spent his entire adult life hiding because of his father's choices, peeked around the corner out of pure human curiosity. For 1 second, I could see his face in my night vision. Young, confused, probably wondering how these strangers knew his name. And that curiosity cost him his life. But taking down Osama's son on the stairway to his father's room meant our mission had just crossed a line from surgical strike to family annihilation, and we still had one more floor to climb. The psychological impact of that moment didn't hit me until later. In the heat of tactical operations, threat elimination is just another item on the checklist. Young male, potential combatant, movement toward American forces, neutralize and continue mission. But years later, analyzing the full implications, I realized we'd just killed a son in front of his father's door. What we didn't know in that moment was whether Osama bin Laden had heard the shot, whether he understood that his youngest son had just lost his life 5 meters from his bedroom, whether he was preparing for a final stand or trying to escape through routes our intelligence hadn't mapped. All we knew was that the element of surprise, the foundation of every successful special operations mission, had been partially compromised. We were no longer ghosts in the night. We were announced visitors, and our host knew we were coming. The decision to call out Khalid's name wasn't random or spontaneous. It was based on decades of research into human psychology under stress. When someone hears their name called in their native language, especially in a moment of confusion, the natural human response is curiosity rather than aggression. This technique had been used successfully in dozens of operations throughout Iraq and Afghanistan. The theory is simple. Create a moment of cognitive dissonance that delays hostile action long enough to assess the threat and respond appropriately. In most cases, it buys you 3 to 5 seconds of tactical advantage. In Khalid's case, it bought us exactly the time needed to determine he was unarmed and make the decision to eliminate a potential threat before he could alert others or arm himself. With the second floor secure, we faced the final ascent. 30 more steps to the third floor. 30 steps to the room with privacy walls where our decade-long hunt would finally end, one way or another. The stairway to the third floor was narrower than the others, barely wide enough for one operator at a time. Classic fatal funnel. If someone was waiting at the top with an AK-47, the first man up those stairs wouldn't be coming back down. But that's why they pay SEAL Team 6 the big bucks. Someone has to be first through every door, first up every stairway, first to face whatever's waiting in the darkness. That night, ascending toward the most important room in the War on Terror, I knew that someone was me. What I found at the top of those stairs would redefine everything we thought we knew about Osama bin Laden. But that's the job. Someone has to be first. 8 years of training, 47 combat operations, thousands of hours in kill houses. It all comes down to moments like this. Being point when being point can get you killed. At the top of the stairs was another metal door, partially open, leading to a narrow hallway. Through my night vision, I could see the hallway extending about 15 feet before ending at what appeared to be a bedroom entrance. No movement, no sound except the distant crying of children from the floors below. That's when I saw him. In the green glow of night vision, a tall figure appeared in the bedroom doorway. Light-colored clothing, dark beard, about 6'4". For 1 second, I was looking at the face that had haunted America for a decade. The man who turned passenger jets into missiles and declared war on civilization itself. But in that moment, he wasn't the mythical leader of global jihad. He wasn't the master strategist from the propaganda videos. He was just a man in pajamas, peering from a bedroom at the sound of footsteps, probably wondering if his worst nightmare had finally arrived. He sees us the same instant we see him. His eyes widen, recognition, fear, resignation flashing across his face in milliseconds. He takes a step back into the room, and that's when the geometry of the situation becomes critical. 2 women are near the bedroom doorway, his wives, based on intelligence. Our point man advances quickly, grabbing both women and pushing them against the far wall, clearing firing lanes while protecting non-combatants. Standard procedure, but executed with perfect precision under maximum pressure. Bin Laden is standing behind where the women had been, hands moving toward something. A weapon? A suicide vest? We don't have time to determine. In close quarters battle, hesitation kills Americans. The engagement happens in compressed time. Our point man raises his HK-controlled pairs to the head and chest. I follow up with additional shots because in our world, good enough gets people killed. We shoot until the threat is completely neutralized. 3 seconds, maybe 4, from first visual contact to threat elimination. 3 seconds that closed the circle of September 11th, 2001. 3 seconds that ended a decade-long hunt. 3 seconds that changed the course of the war on terror. Osama bin Laden, the architect of 9/11, the face of international terrorism, the most wanted man in history, falls backward onto the floor of a bedroom in suburban Pakistan, bleeding onto a carpet that smells like cooking oil and old fabric. In the immediate aftermath, there's no dramatic music, no cinematic moment of triumph, just the sound of suppressed gunfire echoing off concrete walls, 2 women crying in Arabic, and the heaviest silence I've ever experienced. Protocol kicks in immediately. Photography for identification, DNA samples for confirmation, securing any intelligence materials. While some of us maintain security, others begin the methodical process of documenting the most significant terrorist elimination in American history. The man on the floor looked older than his 54 years. Graying beard, weathered face, slight build, not the commanding presence from the old videos. Years of hiding, stress, and isolation had taken their toll. The mythical figure who'd inspired thousands of followers looked remarkably ordinary. But ordinary or not, this was justice. For the firefighters who ran up those towers, for the passengers who fought back on Flight 93, for the soldiers who died hunting him through 2 decades of war, for the families who waited 3,600 days for this moment. While we secured the scene, Cairo worked the compound like the professional he was, checking for explosives or hidden threats. The children and women were treated with respect. They weren't our enemies, just people caught in the crossfire of their patriarch's choices. But the Pakistani F-16s were still approaching and the clock was still running. Standing in that room, looking down at the man who'd changed the course of American history, I realized we'd just participated in something that would be studied for centuries. Not just a military operation, but a moment of historic reckoning. This wasn't revenge, it was justice. This wasn't murder, it was legal elimination of a combatant who declared war on innocent civilians. This wasn't an ending, it was the closing of one chapter and the beginning of another. But we weren't finished yet. We had intelligence to collect, evidence to secure, and a compound to escape before Pakistani forces arrived. The most important part of the mission wasn't killing bin Laden, it was getting home alive to tell the world what we'd accomplished. That's when we discovered something that would change our understanding of Al-Qaeda forever. What we found in that compound wasn't just the world's most wanted terrorist, It was the largest counterterrorism intelligence haul in American history. Computers, hard drives, thumb drives, handwritten journals, correspondence, operational plans. Bin Laden had been living in what amounted to a terrorist command center disguised as a family compound. While we maintained perimeter security, half our team became intelligence collectors, 5 computers, over 100 storage devices, thousands of documents in Arabic, Urdu, and English. Years of Al-Qaeda correspondence, financial records, and most critically, operational plans still under development. But what struck me most wasn't what we found, it was what we didn't find. No secure communication equipment, no encrypted satellite phones, no high-tech command and control apparatus. The man who'd terrorized the world for a decade had been reduced to communicating through human couriers and handwritten notes. The documents we recovered painted the picture of an organization already in decline. Al-Qaeda wasn't the global terror network we'd imagined. It was a fractured movement led by an increasingly isolated figure. Bin Laden's own writings revealed his frustration with regional affiliates who'd strayed from his vision. Our intelligence haul was invaluable, but every additional minute on Pakistani soil brought us closer to an international incident. The F-16s were still approaching, and we had promises to keep. The backup Chinook arrived exactly on schedule, testimony to the precise planning that defined this entire operation. But we still had one massive problem: the crashed stealth helicopter sitting in the compound courtyard, full of classified technology that couldn't fall into foreign hands. The decision was made at the highest levels: destroy the aircraft completely. Thermite charges were placed on the modified tail rotor, classified avionics, and stealth coating materials. When those charges detonated, they would reduce America's most advanced helicopter technology to unrecognizable slag. The thermite burned at 4,000 degrees Fahrenheit, turning classified American military secrets into molten metal and smoke. It was a $60 million funeral pyre, but the technology it protected was priceless. Better to destroy our own equipment than let it be reverse-engineered by potential adversaries. Loading the Chinook took precious minutes we didn't have. Bin Laden's body, wrapped and secured, intelligence materials in waterproof containers, 13 operators plus aircrew. The helicopter was at maximum capacity, and we still had to clear Pakistani airspace before those F-16 arrived. As we lifted off from Abbottabad, I could see the compound below us, now permanently marked by the burning remains of American technology and the death of America's most wanted enemy. But we still weren't safe. Pakistani F-16s were still airborne, still searching for the unauthorized aircraft that had violated their sovereignty. The flight back to Afghanistan was the longest 20 minutes of my military career. We were flying low and fast, using terrain masking to avoid radar detection, with Pakistani fighters somewhere in the darkness looking for us. Sitting in that Chinook, surrounded by the intelligence treasure that would reshape our understanding of international terrorism, I had time to process what we'd just accomplished. We eliminated the architect of 9/11. We collected intelligence that would save American lives for years. We demonstrated American reach in ways that would redefine international perceptions of our capabilities. But we'd also just conducted the most significant violation of Pakistani sovereignty since World War II. We'd killed a man in front of his family in a residential neighborhood. We'd destroyed classified technology on foreign soil. The geopolitical implications were staggering. Welcome to Afghanistan. 4 words from air traffic control that meant safety, mission success, and the end of a decade-long hunt. We'd crossed back into friendly airspace carrying proof that justice, though delayed, had finally been served. The debrief lasted hours, every detail examined, every decision analyzed, every piece of intelligence cataloged. DNA confirmation would take days, but we knew we'd gotten him. Facial recognition was unmistakable, and the intelligence materials confirmed we'd hit the primary target. The immediate reaction wasn't celebration. It was relief mixed with professional satisfaction. We'd executed the mission as planned, adapted when things went wrong, and brought everyone home alive. In our world, that's as good as it gets. President Obama's announcement came 36 hours later. Justice has been done. Three simple words that closed a chapter that began with falling towers and ended in a bedroom in Pakistan. The world's reaction was immediate and overwhelming. Celebration in American streets, condemnation from some quarters, and strategic recalculations by terrorists and governments worldwide. But for those of us who were there, the real impact took months to understand. We'd participated in a mission that would be studied by military historians for centuries. We'd demonstrated capabilities that most people didn't know existed. We'd shown that in an interconnected world, there's no hiding place for enemies of civilization. The intelligence recovered from the Abbottabad compound filled the largest counterterrorism database in American history, over 470,000 files revealing al-Qaeda's true condition, not the global network of propaganda mythology, but a weakened, fractured organization struggling for relevance in a changing world. Bin Laden's own correspondence revealed his growing irrelevance. Regional affiliates ignored his guidance. New terrorist organizations operated independently of al-Qaeda influence. The man we'd spent a decade hunting had become a figurehead for a movement that was already moving beyond him. This operation validated everything we'd learned from 15 years of constant combat. Intelligence-driven operations, exhaustive rehearsals, superior equipment, and professional warriors could accomplish the impossible when properly focused and supported. We demonstrated that no terrorist leader was beyond American reach, regardless of walls, borders, or sovereign protection. But the cost had been enormous. Thousands of American lives lost in Iraq and Afghanistan. Trillions of dollars spent on wars that reshaped the Middle East. A generation of veterans carrying physical and psychological wounds that will last lifetimes. The question we faced wasn't whether justice was served, it was whether the price of that justice was worth paying. 15 years later, I still think about that night. Not the tactical execution or historical significance, but the human cost of the choices we made. Abu Ahmed and his wife, gunned down at the entrance. Khalid bin Laden, killed for the crime of curiosity. Women and children traumatized by violence they didn't choose and couldn't escape. War isn't clean, no matter how professional the warriors or precise the intelligence. Every bullet fired in anger carries consequences beyond its intended target. Every successfully completed mission leaves scars on the survivors, both American operators and foreign civilians caught in the crossfire. But I also think about 9/11. I think about the firefighters who ran toward danger. I think about the passengers who fought back on Flight 93. I think about the families who waited so many days for justice. I think about the soldiers who died hunting the man we eliminated that night in Abbottabad. Veterans carry stories that transcend military statistics and official reports. We carry the weight of decisions made in split seconds, the memory of brothers who didn't come home, and the responsibility to preserve lessons learned in blood and sacrifice. This story isn't just about killing Osama bin Laden. It's about the price of justice and the burden of those chosen to pay it. The compound in Abbottabad was demolished by Pakistani authorities in 2012, erasing the physical evidence of our night's work. But the impact continues to resonate through American foreign policy, counterterrorism strategy, and the capabilities of our special operations forces. Every high-value target operation since Neptune Spear carries the legacy of those 40 minutes, proof that with proper intelligence, meticulous preparation, and professional execution, even the most protected targets are vulnerable to American military power. For the young SEALs who ask me about that night, I tell them it wasn't the dramatic Hollywood moment they imagine. It was 40 minutes of controlled violence, professional competence, and tactical excellence under conditions that would break lesser warriors. We were ordinary men asked to do an extraordinary thing, and we delivered because that's what Americans do when history calls. The war on terror continues, but for those of us who climbed those stairs in Abbottabad, the circle closed on May 2nd, 2011. Justice, as President Obama said, was done. Civilization's enemy was dead, and we were the instruments of that justice. It was the honor of a lifetime to serve alongside the finest warriors America has ever produced on the most important mission of our generation. We entered the darkness so others could live in the light. We carried the burden so others could sleep safe. We answered the call so America could have its reckoning.